Okay, hi guys. Some of you know me. I was here for summer school. I'm Mrs. Todd. Happy to be back here at Synergy and see some familiar faces. So I'm here today to talk about communication in the workplace. Do any of you have a workplace at this point in time, or had one in the past? Okay. Um, Either way, even if you don't have a workplace, you obviously have a school environment that you come to every day. And we all know that communication is different in different places that we go. So I was just curious what communication is to you. What does it mean to you? What do you think the definition is? Jenny? I do remember your name. I gotta call on someone.
Communication is a good connection.
A good connection. Okay.
I mean, being able to interact with other people, verbally
Good.
or physically.
Good. That's great. I forget your names. I don't remember. I don't know the two of you from summer school. My filmer,
Jamie.
Jamie. What's communication mean to you? What do you think it is?
Talking and I don't know.
Yeah. Absolutely. I forgot your name again. I'm sorry.
Ezra.
I'm really terrible with names. Ezra. What is communication to you? What do you think?
When you talk and interact with someone.
Ooh, good one. See? I feel like you guys are building every time. That's awesome. Debbie, last but not least.
Human interactions.
Good. Human interactions. Those are all great definitions. I didn't look up the exact Webster Dictionary definition for you today, but those are all key components of communication. Obviously, we know that communication is key, and it is a part of our lives everywhere we go. We are communicating, whether it is, like you said, physically, verbally. There's a lot of nonverbal communication, and as you guys know, I mean, I was here this summer. I saw everybody with their cell phones. Adults have cell phones as well. We're constantly communicating, even if it's through our technology. So communication is obviously key. It's something that we do naturally, just like breathing. I mean, we're all communicating. I mean, you're communicating right now, even if you're not the one speaking and the one on the wonderful camera. But it's a natural process that we go through all day long. So some forms of nonverbal communication that I'm getting from some of you right now.
Eye contact.
Yes, very good. Anything else? Facial expressions, body language, especially if, do you plan to go into the workforce in the near future? Anyone?
I do.
Okay. So if you want to, I mean, eventually at some point in time, you're going to be in a workplace, and communication is key. And I had some tips for you guys. Number one is just listening. I think a lot of people forget that, and we have to be reminded of it even as adults. I've had lots of professional development where they remind us that active listening is part of communication. Asking someone to repeat what you've said to make sure that they are actually hearing what is coming out of your mouth. So that's a big, huge part, especially in the workplace. Some examples that I was trying to think of is this morning I went to the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten to the window and they get your order wrong, whether they meant to or not, I'm sure they don't, but it happens, and it's just a communication breakdown. It happens everywhere all the time, so make sure you're really listening. And of course, in a workplace, and especially Dunkin' Donuts first thing in the morning, they're really busy and there's a million things going on at once, but really trying to get that order correct. Similarly with restaurants. I mean, we've all gone to restaurants and ordered something and it comes out maybe completely wrong or even a little bit wrong, and it's frustrating. And it's a miscommunication, it's a communication breakdown somewhere. Whether the waitress didn't hear you and write it down right, or she handed it off to the cook and he didn't read it right. There was some sort of a breakdown somewhere. So it's obviously really important in any workplace environment. But paying attention to what you're saying without saying it, and I think a lot of this goes to the written communication. Even in my workplace, I'm in education. I'm at Mayberry Elementary School right down the road. I get a lot of text talk, even from adults. And I'll get an email that's in like a text language or text lingo. And I text too, and I know that we can be very shorthanded in our texting, but trying really hard to differentiate, am I texting with a friend or am I communicating with a coworker? Just knowing your audience. especially when you guys do get to the workplace and you're at an interview and you're communicating with a colleague and a boss, and like I said, a friend or a family member outside of work. It's very different depending on who you're speaking to. And remember that the message that you've sent isn't always the message that's been received. So you sometimes mean something, and that's not how the person understood it. So again, that's the part of listening. You have to really make sure someone is really hearing the things that you're saying and making sure that they understood what you meant by it. And a big part of that definitely goes back to electronic communication. Adults do it all the time. We'll send something in an email and someone will get it. Even our bosses, our own principals, our supervisors won't really understand exactly what we meant. So sometimes you have to just go to that person face to face. I mean, it happens, I'm sure, via text when you're texting with your friends or significant others. You have to actually go talk to them and say, this is what I meant. And then just my last tip for you guys is just get to the point. So try not to be overly long-winded and say what you mean, and let people get back, especially in the workplace, doing their job. So another example that I thought of was recipes. So what's the communication form in a recipe? Debbie, you're getting pointed at. I'm reading the nonverbal communication here. The body language is pointing to you. So what's specific about the communication in a recipe if you're gonna bake something, cook something?
Things have to be done in a specific order, and if you don't follow it exactly as it says, it can come out entirely different.
Exactly. Recipes specifically are sequential, so you have to do them in the order that they are prescribed. What else do you notice about recipes? Ezra, right? Did I remember the name? Yes. What else is important about a recipe? If you're cooking, baking, sequential, they go in order, so I can't start with putting it in the oven. I have to obviously mix it up first.
You need to make sure that you have all the ingredients.
You have to have all the ingredients. Very good. I didn't even think of that one. You guys are smarter than me. You have to have everything that you need. Jenny, there's one other I'm thinking of.
You can't burn it.
That's an important one. You cannot burn it. What else? I'm drawing a mind blank on your first name, but I got Lloyd. Lloyd's coming to me.
Don't call me because I don't even know the answer.
Oh, come on. You're going to point at Debbie?
Cause you said recipe. She be cooking. So
Oh, okay.
She be baking.
It's something to do with the ingredients that Ezra was talking about.
Does it be the right ingredients?
The right ingredients, but also the correct amounts.
Okay.
Yes. See, teamwork. Sometimes it's what you need. Phone a friend. That's a form of communication. But yeah, you have to have the right amounts. Sometimes I'm guilty of putting in a little too much or a little too little because I'm trying to do it quick, but we obviously have to be exact. And then I just came with a silly kind of example for you guys. It's something that we did at our opening activity for back to school this year, but I tweaked it a little bit. We had a great speaker and a great presenter, and she was talking about remembering what people say and being able to communicate it back. Again, it ties into that whole active listening piece. So I thought about my day and I broke it down into very simple, one term at a time. So if you listen and I'm speaking too quickly, think about my communication right now. Pillow, blanket, bed, sleep, wake, dress, brush, walk, run, drive, work, lunch, drive, practice, dinner, bath. Jenny, do you remember everything that I said?
8.
The answer is no, you don't remember
I don't
everything.
even think I had that in there.
You hungry?
I am hungry.
Okay. But I actually didn't have eat in there, but I could put eat in there. I definitely
walk,
could.
Run, with something. I don't know.
Practice, dinner, lunch.
Eat.
That.
Yeah, you guys have,
Food. Bathe.
Fruits.
you have bits and pieces of what I said. So was my communication strong and clear there?
No.
Right.
Too fast.
Too fast.
Sort of too much also.
Maybe too much. So a strategy is breaking it down into chunks. So my first chunk is the nighttime. Pillow, blanket, bed, sleep. All required to go to bed, right? Pillow, blanket, bed, sleep. Sometimes we have to restate what we're trying to say. Sometimes us saying it time and time again. And sometimes it helps the person who's actively listening. So what's my first chunk, Debbie?
You want me to repeat it or say
Yes,
what part of it?
please.
Okay. Pillow, blanket, bed, sleep.
See, we got that, right? So when you break it down into smaller increments, when you stop and take your time a little bit. So then I start with the next part of my day. Wake, dress, brush, walk. So nighttime, we all do it together. Pillow, blanket, bed, sleep. Wake, dress, brush, walk, right? So I'm walking, may turn into a run as I realize that I'm running later and later. Then I drive. Where am I driving to?
Work.
Right. I did have an eating in there. I didn't have breakfast or dinner, but I did squeeze in the lunch. So I had some food in there, Jenny. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Obviously, when I leave work, I get back in the car and do what? Drive. Where do I have to go after work?
Home.
Before I
Practice.
go home. I gotta go to practice.
Home.
Then I go home for
Nap.
A
A
snap?
nap.
Dinner.
I was gonna say some sleep, but a nap.
No,
Have a
I
good
wish.
snap.
I wish there was time in the day
A
for a
snack
nap.
and then you sleep.
Dinner
Snack nap.
and bathe, and then I start the whole thing again. Pillow, blanket, bed, sleep. So just think about your communication, engaging others in what you're trying to say. Like I asked you guys for some help with the things. So it's easier to break things down when we break it into chunks, when we engage the people that we're speaking to. And again, just be brief. Sometimes, especially something like this when you're trying to remember something, I'm sure you guys have heard the strategy of making an acronym to remind yourself. In this case, I'm not going to make this long acronym. I'm not going to remember that either. But if I break it into the chunks, if I repeat it to myself, and if I kind of remind myself of some sort of a story to go along with it, and if I tell that story to someone else, these are the things that I do when I leave work. I get in my car, trying and engaging you guys in the conversation as well helps. So in terms of communication in the workplace, what questions do you guys have? Comments, concerns?
What do you do?
What do I do? That's a great question. I'm a coach in an elementary school, so I work more with the teachers in the school and the adults and help them with their teaching. And I sit with them and I review, all the tests and the data that they have, and we plan for their instruction together. I go into their classrooms and I model a lot of lessons for them, and I go in and I visit them as they're teaching, and then we sit down during their planning periods, and we talk about what's right, what's wrong, what we can do better, what can we fix, what can we change. A lot of my communication, I obviously talk to people often throughout the day, but a lot of it is also through email and the electronic communication. And quite honestly, I think that's where it breaks down. Sometimes genuinely just because it's not read. Like sometimes we just don't have time, or we read the first sentence or a line and then we're like, okay, I got the gist of it, but maybe the gist of it was at the bottom. So one thing that I try to do in my emails when I'm emailing teachers is bolding and underlining and highlighting. Literally, I do all three in the most important parts because I know I'm guilty of it too. I'll, skim something. I'm sure you do it in high school. So I really try to highlight the most important parts for the staff.
You do the lesson that you teach them. Is it reading or writing? Or is it even
All of it. It's all. I help them with math, science, social
all
studies.
that stuff?
Yeah. Yes. And obviously, you guys know, but you have to consider your audience. I interact with 5-year-olds throughout the day. You talk to them very differently than you're going to talk to the teachers in the building and your principal, your boss in the building. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. What have you seen when you've had jobs in the past or a workplace environment, like communication that was good or not so good?
Well, I used to work cleaning up. If they were making a building, they would have a lot of wood and stuff, and they make a mess pretty much, and I would clean it up. And when they would actually pass them something, they wouldn't really give you eye contact, or just be like pass the hammer or something like that.
Yeah, and is that an enjoyable working
No, I want
environment?
to throw it at them.
Right.
Especially Paco. He'd be real disrespectful to me.
But I think that goes back to,
He does.
that's like the golden rule, treat others the way that you want to be treated. But that's communication. It's verbal and nonverbal. Think about walking down the hallway, just something as simple as a smile or a hello. It's simple, but it goes a long way.
That's what my mom told me.
And to be perfectly honest, these are conversations that adults have in their work environments. Like, it's a rule for anyone of any age. What else? Communication. Wise. What about in school? Good,
Raising
bad.
your hand.
Yep.
For communication.
But you'll learn, I mean, whether you're going into college or into the workplace, you may not always raise your hand. That rule may change a little as you get older. But I mean, it's effective. I'm in an elementary school, and if all 20, 7-year-olds are shouting out at the same time, no one's getting anywhere. So it is effective, but being mindful, when you are working with adults, you may all start to talk at once. It goes back to just being respectful. Okay, I'll take a step back. It's your turn. Go ahead, say what you wanted to say, and I'll chime in after. And I'm not saying I'm the expert in this area by any means, but I've had some experience.